especially when there is chaos in sports. That's why we have our guy, Pep. Pep, what's going on? Let's go through it.
Patrick, I'm down with all of it, man. We'll start with the college football fiasco before we get to your NFL action. But yes, on Sunday, the College Football Playoff Committee revealed the top 4 teams in all the land. Little bit of surprise here. We've got Michigan at number 1. We've got Washington at number 2. Texas at 3, and they slipped Alabama, your SEC champion, in at number 4 after they beat Georgia for the conference championship. So, who got left out? Well, Florida State, who went undefeated, won their conference, the ACC. They're out. But also, I know Georgia lost to Alabama, but think about it, Patrick. Georgia was basically the number 1 team in college football all season long, but they happened to lose the last game of the season, which is also the biggest game of the season, and they are out, and people are losing their minds right now. This would be the perfect year to expand the playoffs to 12 teams.
So many things to point out here. Like you just said, okay, now Georgia's not one of the best 4 teams in college football. Another point is people were saying if Deion Sanders was the coach of FSU, then they probably make it in. You can see how Alabama beats Georgia and then Texas beat Alabama. I see how they did it. We talked about this on Thursday. If Georgia does lose or one of these undefeated teams does lose and it causes chaos, someone is going to be unhappy, and it turns out it's Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State did everything they could have, man. They went undefeated, 13-0. They won their conference championship, but at the end of the day, how do you not have the SEC in the college football playoff? And if you saw the Michigan Wolverines' reaction, because Michigan's going to play Alabama in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena in one of those national semifinals, if you saw Michigan's reaction, they were not cheering and screaming when they saw they had to play Alabama. I bet you the Wolverines and Jim Harbaugh would have rather had Florida State in that semifinal, not Alabama. So is Alabama probably the better team? Yeah, but Florida State, at least in my book, deserves to be there. They did everything they were supposed to do.
They did, and like we talked about on Thursday, the 12-team playoff will get rid of all this madness to where even if Florida State didn't make the Final Four, this 12-team would at least, in the 12-team thing, the Final Four will just get a bye. Yeah. So instead of being out of it completely, they just won't get the bye, but you still have a chance. That's why we need the 12-team playoff, just like you said. But this is kind of like the old days of the FBS. There's going to be some BS called.
There is. Yeah, and if we had that 12-team playoff, Patrick, think about it. Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State, obviously, the Oregon Ducks, they would all still be in the mix for the national championship. We would have some amazing playoff games on that road to the national championship game. So I wish they had it this year. This would be the ideal situation, but it's not. And there's a couple teams on the outside looking in that are pretty bummed out on this Monday.
Right. And it's funny, an old video from 2017 of the great Mike Leach saying Final Four, that's not a real playoff. Only 4 teams, that's not a real playoff. Yeah. And now that just couldn't be more true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It paints the perfect picture of why we need more than 4 teams, because there's a lot of deserving teams that I feel like there's probably 8 to 10 teams that should be in the national title picture, but we're narrowing it down to 4. And there's a lot of, upset people, especially at Florida State. I'd even say Georgia too. Like we said, Georgia was the number 1 team for basically the entire season, and then they lose by 3 to Alabama at the last game of the year.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man.
All right, so we got Michigan, Alabama in the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl coming up, and then Washington versus Texas, which is going to be a great game as well. That'll be the Sugar Bowl, and now Steve Sarkisian going up against his former team.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun, right? Oh, and UCLA. UCLA got into a bowl game. They're going to make the long trip to the LA Bowl. UCLA in the LA Bowl at SoFi taking on Boise State, your Mountain West Conference champion. That game is on December 16th if you're taking notes at home.
Yes, our sales guy Tony has 2 boys who are at Boise State, so he's very pumped. He doesn't have to travel very far.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the LA Bowl, man, right there at SoFi Stadium. They started that a couple of years ago, and obviously that tradition continues. And UCLA got into a bowl game, and that's it's got some West Coast flavor. I'm kind of into that, Boise State against UCLA. I think it could be intriguing at least.
What a turn of events. They were saying Chip Kelly should be fired, and
Yeah.
boom, he's in a bowl game.
And he's in a bowl game. All right, so that's the fiasco known as college football to the NFL. I'm not bringing it up because it's my favorite team, the 49ers. But really, Patrick, it was the premier game going into this weekend. 49ers against the Eagles, a rematch of the NFC Championship game from a year ago, which obviously Philadelphia won and advanced to the Super Bowl. 49ers left no doubt. They're a little Jekyll and Hyde for me because they had that bad stretch of 3 weeks, but when they play like this against the Eagles, they might be the best team in the NFL. They beat Philadelphia in Philadelphia 42-19. Patrick, that is a beatdown, my friend.
I think it is rather clear that they're the best team in the NFL because it is going into the most hostile of environments, and to go in there and to just punk them and take their lunch money like that, I think it's pretty clear, man, because I think we all thought that this was going to be a much more competitive game, but it was pretty clear the 49ers are better.
Man, and Deebo Samuel last year said if Brock Purdy was healthy, we would win and it wouldn't be close. And everyone's like, oh, man, that's an unknowable fact. You don't know that. That's all hypothetical. Deebo, my boy Deebo was right, man. They went into Philadelphia and just punked them like that. So, again, if they see each other in the playoffs, it's tough to beat the same team twice in one season. I get all that. But that was a pretty big statement win by the 49ers, even though Philadelphia technically still has a better record than San Francisco. So if Philly wins out and San Francisco wins out, the road to the Super Bowl would still go through Philly.
I think they beat him again because there was a soul snatching that happened. You know what I mean? They took their soul.
They did. I like the way you put that. Yeah, it was true. It was a big win. And then Kansas City losing last night on Sunday Night Football. So if you're thinking we're going to get a Chiefs-Eagles rematch this year in the Super Bowl, not so fast, because both of these teams look like they've got some weaknesses and might not be even the favorites in their conference to get back to the Super Bowl game.
And then we even talked about this on Thursday. Either way, Patty Mahomes is not going to have that AFC Championship in Kansas City. It's not happening, man. We're going to have a new contender in the AFC.
Sure doesn't look like it. It sure looks like it might be Baltimore. And I know we still have, 5 or 6 regular season games to go. Yes. So there's still a lot to be said. But, yeah, it sure looks like Kansas City is going to be put into a tough spot if they have to go on the road in the playoffs to advance to the Super Bowl.
I mean, the NFL is so wild. I mean, look at the Rams. The Rams are now a contender.
Yeah, when you look at the division leaders and what the playoff picture looks like and teams that are on the bubble, the Rams are right there, man. The Rams are right there on the bubble. They beat the Cleveland Browns yesterday 36-19 and beat old Joe Flacco at quarterback for Cleveland. But the Rams are right there in the mix.
They are, and this will be a great test when they go to Baltimore next week. If they can beat Baltimore, then they're legit, baby.
So all you Chiefs fans, you better be rooting for the Rams this week to do something against Baltimore, because that would help the AFC picture look a little bit more clear. And the other game, real quick, Patrick, in the NFL, I wanted to jump to the Chargers winning at New England 6-0. To be honest, I never thought I'd see the day when the Patriots would look so bad, but they're that bad. And I know the Chargers won, but it wasn't pretty. But they still got the win in New England.
A win is a win, but my God, it was ugly.
Man, I just never thought I'd see the day. They were so good for so long, and now they are so bad. It's like they just fell off the cliff to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Does Bill Belichick survive this? Do they make a change at quarterback? I think all those things are on the table right now.
It just goes to show you, and I mean, there's one person who's loving this, and that's Tom Brady.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everyone said, was it Belichick or was it Brady? What was the reason why New England was so good? Well, Tom Brady left and won a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, and New England literally fell off a cliff. So Tom Brady was a big reason why, obviously, for that dynasty. And finally, Patrick, let's hoop it up, man. Let's talk some NBA. We've got the old in-season tournament. If you're asking, well, what's the in-season tournament? Most people are asking the same thing, but they're having like their own little NBA playoffs, little in-season tournament during the season to make these games more meaningful, make them important. If you're a Lakers fan, they are in the in-season tournament quarterfinals. They're going to take on the Suns on Tuesday night. So I don't know if you're into that sort of thing, but we've got the in-season tournament, and the Lakers are in the hunt for an in-season title.
It always seems like, in America that we don't care about the in-season champion. I mean, for years before Peyton Manning could win the big one, everyone was like, he's the greatest regular season quarterback, and no one gave a rat's behind, right?
Yeah.
But I've heard that ratings are up and that people are actually watching the games more. They have to do something because it seems like half the league makes the playoffs. And unfortunately, when they do that, it makes the regular season not as important. So I get it that they're trying to make it more important. I do understand that, actually. And they make weird courts, which makes us turn it on and be like, what is this court?
Yeah. What is this, like minor league, semi-pro basketball that I'm watching? No, it's the NBA. Yeah, they have the weird courts, and they try to spice it up. And I get it. Listen, we had, Georgia versus Alabama on TV. We had the 49ers versus the Eagles. Like, we've got all these great football games. How do you compete with that? So I get it. It's not by accident they're trying to do something to compete with football.
I do like this part of it. It does kind of force those players. They're trying to decrease load management.
Sure.
And that's one thing that does come up is when you take Junior to your really expensive NBA game, like my kids, they want to see LeBron. In the in-season tournament, you're more likely to see LeBron. That part of it for the kids and stuff, I do like.
Yeah, I was watching some Clipper highlights. I actually saw Kawhi Leonard. I was stunned. I'm like, I don't even know when this guy plays. And he was playing because the Clippers at the time had some important games because it was the in-season tournament.
So that part of it, I actually do understand. Man, Thursday coming up, we'll have more to talk about. All the chaos that happened. What a wild weekend it was. Pep, tell me how to get your stuff.
There's a lot to digest, Patrick. We'll do it again on Thursday. Until then, you can check out Inland Sports, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. That's Inland Sports.
Thanks, Pep.